The big political news today, Mayor Chris Coleman, mayor of St. Paul, announced, of course, earlier this month that he is not running for a fourth term. And we all kind of suspected he might be running for something else. And he, even at the time, said he might be. And he has announced today that he is going to run for governor. And he's joining us today on the phone to talk about it. Welcome to the program, Mayor Coleman.
Good afternoon, Mike.
I got to ask you, why you're running?
Well, I've had a great honor to be mayor of St. Paul for the last 11 years. I've loved the work that we've done with so many folks across Minnesota, the work that we've done in the city of St. Paul to revitalize it, bring jobs to the city, to increase economic opportunity for all, working on education, public safety. I think these are the issues that people across the state of Minnesota care about, and I'm anxious to get out and talk with folks about them.
Now, a couple of weeks ago, of course, you announced that you were not running for a fourth term. And at the time, you expressed that you were thinking about running for governor. What tipped you to making the decision?
Well, I needed just a little space in between making the decision relative to the mayor's race and announcing that, and just making a final decision in consultation with my family and friends, and just making sure this is an important decision, and the future of Minnesota is really a critical conversation that needs to be had across the state. What do we want for our communities? What do we want for our families? And I wanted to make sure that I was all in on it, and I'm jumping in with both feet into it, and very excited about the opportunity.
I mean, this is we're essentially 2 years out from this. You've got one opponent already announced. Representative Erin Murphy is running. It's going to be a long slog between now and the state convention or primary. Have you conferred with anybody in the past who's run for this office and talked to them about what it takes and what you'd be facing?
Well, I know it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of miles that will be logged over the next couple of years. I'm used to hard work. I've worked very, very hard for the last 11 years as mayor, and before that when I was running for the office. And I'm not afraid of the hard work, because at the end of the day, if I'm fortunate enough to get elected, the work will just be beginning, and it's really about making sure that we're doing what we need to do to continue to advance our state. I think Minnesota is great. I think we're doing in many ways better than a lot of other states, but I know that we can do even better, and I know that we need to continue the momentum that we have.
I mean, politics is a hard job. Running for office is a real hard job. So you really have to like something about it to get out of bed in the morning and say, I'm going to go do that. I am going to put up with the criticism. I'm going to put up with the headaches and the heartaches that go along with this. What is it that gets you out of bed and jumping up to do this job? Well,
I tell you, first of all, I grew up in a family where we were taught to give back to the community. That was an important value. This was never about what was in it for ourselves. It was in it what we could do for others. And I've had a chance to witness that when I walk into a classroom and talk with young students about what they want to see in the city, and then get a chance to implement that. When I think about, we have people moving into the Dorothy Day Center this week that might otherwise be left out on a cold street in the middle of a Minnesota winter. When I think of the vitality that we brought to Lower Town, the excitement around CHS Field, having just cops on the street and increasing the highest number of officers in the history of the city, I look at all of those things that we've been able to accomplish, and I just think it's the most important work that you can do, and I can't imagine wanting to do anything else.
Well, let's jump into an issue that right now Governor Dayton, our current governor, is dealing with, and you obviously will have an opinion on too, and that's a special session. A lot of money sitting there that didn't get sent to St. Paul because of the bills that didn't get passed. Here's the governor trying to resolve a problem where MNsure is an issue. There's a bonding and tax bill that we mentioned. And the Republicans are demanding that they get what they want, and the governor wants what he wants. If you were sitting in his shoes right now, how would you be handling this?
Well, first of all, I take pride in the fact that I've been able to work across the board with folks from different perspectives to get things done. And that's, at the end of the day, we get elected to get things done. to build transit systems, to invest in our infrastructure, to keep jobs in our communities. And you have to reach out across, to work with others that may not necessarily agree with you on everything. You look at even the work that we did on some projects that have been critical to St. Paul, like CHS Field and the future home of Minnesota United. We work very closely with Republican leadership on that issue to get things done. And I think that they can come to an agreement on the special session. I think it's important for communities across the state of Minnesota. There's no point in having money sitting there that could be returned to communities across Minnesota to put people back to work, to help stabilize property taxes. So I'm very hopeful that that's going to get done, and this is going to be the next couple of years. Obviously, we're going to have a divided government. There's going to have to be compromises that are made between both sides. Otherwise, we're going to be stuck, and I don't think that that's what the voters of the state of Minnesota are looking for.
When you talk about divided government and you talk about compromise, people who are Democrats or people who are Republicans even kind of get their hackles up and say, you better not give in on this. You better not do this. Where are the lines? What are the principles that you do not cross when you're trying to work out a compromise deal?
Well, my first guiding principle is, we shouldn't be in the business of creating winners and losers. Just because we're assisting somebody, with one set of challenges doesn't mean that we have to give up on other people that are facing, challenges from a different perspective. We have people across the state of Minnesota. I do believe that Minnesota is strong, but I know that there are a lot of people out there that are hurting, that are uncertain about their future, that aren't sure that they are going to be able to pay the bills at the end of the day. And we need to be able to work on behalf of all of those folks across the state. And so, stagnation is not an option. Not getting things done is not an option. Shutting down government is not an option. This is, the challenge is we talk past each other. Mm-hmm. I think one of the things I take great pride in is bringing people together, talking through differences, coming to an agreement. And compromise somehow has become a dirty word. I don't believe that. I think that we have to stand on our principles, but at the end of the day, realize no one person has all the answers to all the challenges that we face.
Now, if you are the nominee and you are at the top of the ticket, a lot of people are going to be looking at you to help drive the Democratic Party to pull back and grab some of these majorities that they've lost in the House and the Senate here, and maybe even in future races. What are you going to do to help bring the majorities back if you are at the top of the ticket?
Well, first of all, I worked very hard, not just this last year, but over the last several years. I was out campaigning on behalf of DFL candidates across the state of Minnesota, supporting them with financial resources, working very, very hard to help them get their message out. And obviously this was a tsunami that occurred both on a state and a federal level, with the election of the soon-to-be president, Trump. And, there are a lot of challenges. But I think that the most important thing that we can do is just go out and talk with people, listen to them, hear their concerns, hear their frustrations with government, and figure out how we can address those concerns. Again, I think at the end of the day, the issues that we face are universal. It is about jobs. It's about public safety. It's about education. I haven't talked to a Democrat, a Republican, an independent, any other persuasion that doesn't, that's not concerned about those things. And that's the universal message that I think the Democrats, really, we've been fighting on behalf of families for years. Sometimes our message hasn't been as clear and concise as it needs to be. But that's why we need to get out and talk with people in every corner of the state.
We talk about jobs, talk about public safety, you talk about education, but it's the approach and it's the solutions to those things that kind of tend to divide us. Jobs, we're talking about the Democrats would like to see the minimum wage go up. Republicans, not so much. Public safety, there's been more, we want more cops in the streets, but then there's people who are with Black Lives Matter say the police are, are essentially acting as bad actors. There's problems with policing and doing it that way, and there should be a different way than sticking lots of police out there. And in education, we start talking about we need more dollars, we need more teachers, and we hear Republicans saying, no, what we need is more choice. We need to have different schools. We need to be able to go out and do charter schools. So there's definite choices here within these, and they're very stark choices. So how do you reconcile that?
Well, I think that we got to stop kind of thinking in terms of zero sums. It isn't just about the number of police officers. It's about how those officers are trained. It's about how they interact with community. It's about how they build relationships. And I think in the city of St. Paul, we've asked some hard questions of ourselves on how we police, and made changes where we need to make those, and continue to do that. On education, we've taken the approach, the schools and the teachers in the schools are working very hard. But as a community, what is our role and responsibility in making sure that our kids are prepared to go to school from day one, making sure that they have learning opportunities that continue beyond the classroom hours, making sure that they have a safe environment have a stable housing situation. Those are we keep on putting these things in. Well, either you're focusing on that particular aspect of education or particular aspect of economic development, whatever it might be. And this is why I think the conversation becomes we stop listening to each other, and instead of saying I'm going to take my role, I'm going to take my responsibility, I'm going to do what I need to do to help on education, for instance. Just as we've done in the city of St. Paul, we didn't blame teachers for the challenges that are faced in the classroom. We said, how can we be helpful? How can we support the work that you're doing in the classroom? I think that again, stop screaming at each other and let's start talking to each other.
We're speaking with St. Paul Mayor Chris Coleman, who's announced today that he is going to run for governor. A couple more questions here, and I know we have to wrap up, but the man that you're looking to replace, and I guess replace is the wrong word, but follow, Governor Mark Dayton. When you take a look at his term in office here and what he's done, what do you look at that you admire about what he's done, and what would you have changed about what he's done?
Well, when you think about it, Governor Dayton came in after over 20 years of first Democrat in the office in almost 20 years, and he made some really important choices in investing in public infrastructure, investing in education, and investing in the work of building the state. And he made some tough choices. But if you look at the results, if you look at the unemployment levels in the state of Minnesota, if you look at the economic investment that's occurring in the state. There's a very stark contrast between the state of Minnesota and the state of Wisconsin in terms of what happens when you invest in your community and invest in your future. And so, every governor is going to face different issues. Every governor is going to be faced with different choices. But what I've admired the most about the governor is he's made tough choices. He's fought like hell on behalf of the state of Minnesota. And I think, like the governor, my passion for this state is second to none, and so part of that is again realizing we're all in this together. Whether you're from Rochester or Mankato, or you're from St. Paul, or you're from Duluth, or wherever, any part of the state, we're all better off when we're working together instead of fighting each other.
And then anything that the governor has done that you maybe didn't like or you would have done differently?
Well, there's a lot of things that I think we need to do more of. I applaud the governor's work on universal pre-K, but I think that there's increasing bodies of evidence that we need to work with families even earlier to make sure that our children are getting ready and prepared even before the brain development that occurs from 0 to 3 is a most critical time in a child's life. And so what are the things that we can do? What are the networks that we can build from a community-based perspective? What can happen in our libraries? What can happen in our community and faith-based centers? And there's a lot of work that we can do that I'd like to, again, get out to the four corners of the state to talk with people about the things that they want to have happen and really put a plan together for the future of Minnesota.
And final question, the question you'll get at every DFL debate and convention. Are you going to abide by the endorsement?
I tell you, I've been blessed to have the DFL endorsement 3 times as I've run for mayor, and every time I've gone in, and the only way I can think about that is I'm going to get the endorsement. That's why I'm running as hard as I am, and that's what I'm anticipating. So we're going to get the endorsement, and we're going to run strong as a united party.
Okay, but I'm not hearing you say you're going to abide by it if you didn't get it.
I've been honored to have the endorsement 3 times for mayor, and I'm going to get it for governor in 2018.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. Mayor Chris Coleman of St. Paul, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
All right, we are going to take a break, and when we come back, more here on the Mike McEntee Show, 952-946-6205 if you want to join in the conversation. Talk a little bit more in a bit.